Okay, morning folks. This was just like a wee catch-up session to see how you are all doing, and obviously from a few of your, comments and stuff, you know, that's what they're there for. Jim, I'm sorry that I misled you or we didn't quite get the concept. Do you know what we're talking about now?
I probably
Okay.
confused him. That's why, Leslie.
Look, I mean, there is no real proper hard and fast rules. We wanted to give you a wee bit of, a lot of these programs had been sort of history based, etc. So bringing in a wee bit of visual art was something slightly different, but we also wanted to keep that connection with the library, obviously, from the written concept or aspect of it. And I mean, from my personal perspective, I quite like to use a bit of text in work as well, so it was a way of marrying that. What Jan was saying the other day as well, if your postcard is too small for your story, maybe you could just write a wee synopsis on it, like the back of a book cover, say, you were going to say, hi Francis, how you doing? Will you hear what's happened? And maybe start into the beginning of your story, and then have your actual written story, your short story, maybe on a A4 page, which we can display and record as well. There's, and that's just something that has came about from Jan's session the other day, of how we can expand this. I sent you a couple of wee videos on Slack as well, just examples of stuff, about the layering and the collage aspect of, putting together an image. Again, the image it's really as far as you just want to go. There's also that aspect, less is more. You can have it very plain, very stripped back. There was a great thing on BBC4 the other week. I'll have to look it up for you, about book covers and how they've changed, and how they became sort of sensationalized to get people to pick them up more. But you also have to remember that old adage of, never judge a book by its cover. So there's all these, of how visuals can marry with text as well. But what was my train of thought there? Yes, the written part of the story, it doesn't have to be all fit onto the postcard, if that makes sense. Does anybody want to feedback here? No, he's all right. Okay, happy for me to go on ahead. The other things that I sent you a couple of links about the postcards. Does everybody get their postcard pack? Yeah, okay. So we're trying to give you a bit of an example of what the postcards, what they could convey. And I sent you a wee link about John Luke. Were you familiar with John Luke before getting this? No, not really. It was sort of a lot of his career was based really in, Belfast and the north, to be honest with you. But I suppose he's most famous for doing frescoes, which people would have known from the Renaissance, which is a form of painting on wet plaster. And he done, was sort of his biggest commission, or one of his biggest commissions was in the City Hall in Belfast. There's actually frescoes there. I sort of like them as work. It's sort of that wee bit mystical and fantasy aspect, but he had a sort of a bit of a hidden meaning behind it as well. And I thought that tied in with Jan, what she was talking about, her fantastical reality or something was the term that she uses. I can't quite remember it, where she sort of puts normal day life and she puts just a wee tiny bit of fantasy into it. And I thought sort of Luke's work has that, that really underlying thing. It's also, when you're coming to a postcard, he worked quite small as well. When you're coming to a postcard, maybe, it's something bright that you would pick up, It's like, Jim, you had said about the cartoon sort of seaside postcard. Again, they were always quite brightly coloured, or, black and white photograph or postcards as well, black and white images, I suppose it's come down to that sort of strong image. And again, the size of a postcard, you can afford to experiment. You can afford to, I hate the word make a mistake, but if it goes really bad and too far, it's all right. It's not as if we're working on, very expensive primed Milligan Brothers canvas. So, just take a few risks, experiment. One of the other ones that I sent you was this here, the F.E. McWilliams, Women in the Bomb Blast. Are any of you familiar with his work? Yeah. Okay. Well, he came from here, obviously. There's the F.E. McWilliams Gallery in Banbridge, but he worked a lot in London as well. But this series is probably his most known, as well known, and it's called Woman in a Bomb Blast. And, there's been a lot of, people write about this, about that, the indignity of a woman getting caught, with her skirt being blown up and her face being hidden, etc. So there's all these metaphors. And he started this series, I think it was after the 1971, and there was a bomb in a bar in Belfast called the Abercorn, which would have been, if any of you are familiar with Belfast, was very close to Cornmarket, where the British Home Stores used to be, for any of you older Belfastians or Belfirstians. So there's quite a lot of writing about that, and it's how some of the artists responded to the Troubles. And actually there's the Troubles art website that the people, it's part of the Making the Future project. So if you can go onto the website, there's
it was touring around loads of museums. I can't think, the last place it was maybe at was Enniskillen maybe, but there's no museums open now, unfortunately. But you can go onto the makingthefuture.eu website, and that's it's got all the different strands of hers, and one of them is Troubles art, and that one you're describing there, I'm pretty sure it was featured in it, wasn't it, Leslie?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
But you might be able to look up some of the pieces from there. But after this is all over, hopefully it'll be open again. You should try to get up to it. It was a really nice exhibition.
Yeah, I know. I have to admit, I do miss going to an old gallery, and just having that wee half an hour, 45 minutes to yourself sometimes, but then it's just me. Listen, I always feel as if in these sessions where me or whoever's, we're the ones that are always talking, and it was lovely that Jan done something interactive with you. She nailed that, so we're really gonna be bringing her back at some stage for other projects, and we're also going to blatantly steal from her, so I'm sure she won't mind. So what about if I go through the ones that are here at the moment and just give me a wee bit of feedback, and also it gives us a chance to get to know you a bit better. And if anybody who's muted wants to ask a question or comment, you just put your hand up. Does that sound okay, Jude?
Of course, yeah.
Paul, sorry, I keep forgetting about you, the quiet man.
Over there being quiet today.
Have myself muted there.
Okay, well, we'll start with Jim. Well, on my screen, you're next in line, so.
Yeah, Jim, you're unmuted now.
Okay. I get it now. I get the concept of the front and the back. I think probably what happened was I thought I had the concept about the front, and then I got so excited about John's stuff yesterday. I started to wonder, how do you get this? I nearly seen it as, oh, I'm going to be a writer now. But no.
That's what I felt too, Jim. I thought this is it. This is the start of my new career. She's made me realise writing's not as hard as I thought it was.
No, just giving it a wee bit of a shape. This was amazing. I'm going to make a confession here. I signed up to this. I'm not creativity isn't something I ever thought about. I was interested in Bill Roston's talk. That's why I sort of latched on to this. But I've got excited about it. But it's all still very up there, and I'm coming up with lots and lots of ideas, and I don't know how practical they are or what. But I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Just a couple of practical questions, if that's okay at this stage. You sent us out 10 postcards. I came up with the idea of sending one round a couple of groups that WhatsApp groups, and asked them to do a wee bit on each.
Mm-hmm.
I can print out more of those cards, and I was thinking to send each person, as well as doing a wee bit of theirs, of mine, to let them do one of their own. Would that be okay, or should it just?
No,
Get,
that's absolutely fine. We'd sent the blank postcards out. We were, again, this is probably, it's a bit new to us as well. It was maybe got lost in translation. You know, definitely send out some blank postcards to friends and family if you want, if you think they're going to, you know, do something and return it to you. And, you know, they don't have to do the whole, you know, big story thing. It could just be, you know, thanks for thinking of me, you know, in their visual. But it was also that wee strand of trying to keep together, you know, and you know, communicating. But absolutely, there's not really any hard and fast rules, apart from the fact that we maybe would like them back, so as we can create some type of exhibition or some digital forum, and you know, from that. So that's perfectly grand. We would encourage that, definitely. And don't worry about, you know, printing, you know, even just pieces of blank card, you know, that doesn't have to have the make in the future or anything on it, you know what I mean? So just, I mean, what I said, you know, if you're, even a stuck down envelope can become a postcard, any piece of white card or coloured card, you know, it doesn't matter. There's no hard and fast rules, as long as it's not like completely massive, you know.
A3, yeah.
You know, how's your writing coming along? How's the story part of it?
Um, it's up there. I don't know. I'm thinking about, do you do the art and then let that stimulate a story, or the other way around? But I think it needs to be the art. I like the idea of the diner that John showed us,
Yes.
and picking a character out of that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm going with that idea. Maybe do a bit of art and either a story related to it, or commentary on it, or thoughts on it. And that's just,
The other thing as well, don't forget, you know, your image doesn't have to tell, your visual doesn't have to tell the whole story. Who was talking about fruit, you know, the guilty fruit the other day, and their story? Are they here today?
No, that was I've forgotten her name now, but no, she's not here today.
Oh, right. She had mentioned, you know, when they're in our first redraft, that was about the bowl of fruit sitting. And then we had the conversation about, you know, there's always the fruit, the guilt fruit, you know, if, you know, when you're trying to be healthy, or, you know, it would have been something. I remember my granny would have had plastic fruit sitting on the sideboard, because obviously fruit when she was growing up was such a luxury. You know, so even your visual for your story, you know, could be, you know, just one aspect of it. You know, for her story, it could have been those, you know, the fruit, you know, and then a wee reference to the grapes of wrath or something. You know, there's all these, you know, it doesn't have to be the whole all singing, all dancing, you know, story from start to finish. If you want to do that, brilliant. Like, you know, I'm not going to complain. Um, so, but you know, it can just be one aspect of it. But I mean, if you've got the general idea, you know, of a bigger picture, literally, go for it. The other thing I liked in the wee collage piece that I sent you is that there was a wee bit of text in it. That sometimes gives people sort of anchors, you know, a story for people as well. So are you happy enough for that, Jim? Is there anything else?
but just a time scale. Is there a set time scale when you expect
Yes,
stuff back?
yes, absolutely. You know, I'm a great. Well,
Should
look,
have asked.
I know. Well, look, we've got next week. We've got Bill, and then I think the following Tuesday, I think. So we've got from about today, for about 2.5 weeks or so. And then by the time he's all post them in, and start, you know, posting them on Slack and stuff. So I think that's the last session is the 2nd of June. And again, I think it's a bit of a show and tell one, maybe, where I'll get you to read your stories and stuff and share.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
No pressure
But,
there, Jim?
sorry?
No pressure at all, like.
As a wise man told me, if you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. Oh, you know. Right, thank you.
Not a problem.
Well done,
Okay.
Jim, as well. You saying you've never found yourself doing any creative stuff or anything before, so that was really good of you putting yourself out and doing the story writing and stuff last week. Brilliant. The last session. Keep it up. Everybody's got some type of creativity in them. It's just getting it out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I like so much about Jan's talk. She could make you feel creative and you didn't have a clue what you were being creative about, you know. It's good. Brilliant.
Okay, Jude, who have you got up next in your screen?
Alexandra, I could go to you next. Let's see. There you are.
Hi, I'm way behind with the whole thing at the moment because I've had other things on, so I really haven't had time to do anything creative. I've got a lot of ideas in my head, and I'll come up with something eventually. But I'm not at the position at the moment to say an awful lot about it.
It's okay. Listen, there's no pressure. I mean, this is a bit of fun as well. It's a bit of, you know, taking you away from the situation that we're in. So I mean, again, that's where I always said, you know, there's no real right or wrongs, and it is just, you know, it's an opportunity to, I mean, even for me, with sitting in Jan's workshop the other day, you know, and the way near, you know, to actually, as Jude says, to be inspired by her, you know, and have that bit of inspiration, you know, there's no hard and fast rules about it. We're not going to give you lines or put you in detention.
No, don't get me wrong. I don't feel pressured by the project.
That's good.
I'm enjoying it, and I enjoyed Jan's session, and I enjoyed your art session. It's just I haven't had time to sit down myself and put the ideas together yet.
Great, that's fine. All right. Okay. Who's next, Sir Jude? I've got Francis. Is that?
Yeah, that's what's on my screen too. Francis, I'll unmute you here. There you go.
Hiya.
Right. Spotlight's on you, girl.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've been, really, really inspired. I think at the start of lockdown, I wanted to do something creative, but I didn't know how to start. And I've never been arty. I tried to teach myself how to crochet, and that was a disaster. And that was at the start of lockdown. So I was just sitting, kind of looking around me. And it was my birthday on the 7th of May. And I got sent flyers, and you look out the window because I isolated for 2 weeks up in Belfast, and then I came down to Omagh in the middle of nowhere, and so looking out my window I was seeing flowers, and it's like, well, what do flowers mean to me? And I was thinking, well, there's lots of people who have started gardening, but also so it reminded me of birthdays. It was, my mum died last June, and so Daddy's been going whenever he could to leave flowers on the grave, and he'll whenever he couldn't get out, he has a photograph of Mum, so he was getting fresh flowers to put there. So I have learned how to dry flowers. I hope I've been trying to dry flowers, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it on and keep it. So I'm thinking about maybe covering it with PVA glue.
Yeah.
So I'm going off on a tangent. So I was thinking about dry flowers. I've been going through magazines and cutting out pictures of flowers, and then so the short story I think will be around possibly Daddy and the whole we broke shielding just to go and put flowers on her grave for her birthday. There was no one there, and the graveyards were open, and we didn't see anyone. So we had that, and then also on my walk, I came across, this is the next one. I've got so many ideas. Do you want me to just stop?
No, go on ahead, Francis.
Going on. So also we've got with being in the country, there's lots of bird song, and I've seen lots of little birds that I've never seen before. And I was thinking, oh, isn't that great? So I'd like to cover the postcard in pictures of birds and bees and things like that, but also on my walk down to the bottom of the driveway there was a dead shrew, and so me and my husband were trying to pick up the shrew with 2 sticks to try and get it out of the way. And so then I thought, well, for my short story I'd like to call it funeral for a shrew, but have it from the point of view of the shrew and this final indignity of being dropped and bounced around before being chucked in a hedge. Yeah, so distraction is one that I'm thinking of as well. So I was thinking of the word distraction, what it meant to me, and it was like, well, people are trying to distract themselves with booze, personally, quizzes, and like reading and things like that. So, and with all the clapping, and I was thinking of like the deeper things, that it's kind of like a thin veneer over what's actually happening. So I'm waiting on some tracing paper. I tried it with baking paper and it didn't work. Tracing paper just sort of staple over a postcard.
Mm-hmm.
Does this make sense? So that you can sort of see through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have like stats and stuff at the back and the real stark, horrible stuff, but then have this piece over it. And I was thinking with staples, it'd be sort of like, it's crude and it's, you know, it's also, it's impermanent as well. It's not like glue, or, you know, you can take them out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got another couple of ones, but yeah.
Frances, that sounds great. It really does. I like the fact that you know, you've got that people do mask what's happening. I mean, are there, you know, I mean, personally for me, like the things I was going to do, I was going to kill dead things, and I haven't done any of those. Do you know what I mean? Really. But and I like that aspect that you have about the layering as well. The other thing you can do with the postcard for the dried flowers is, you know, maybe get it laminated or something.
Yeah.
You know, bunches of.
I was thinking about laminating it, but then I was thinking the back of it. But I suppose it'll already be written on.
Yeah, I mean, even if you were to post it up to yourselves for the exhibition, we could maybe get it laminated for you. But there's just on a slightly different technical thing. There's a glue called Anita's Tacky Glue. And it's a wee bit better than PV, you know, your normal PVA that you would get in the pound shop, which I use as well. I'm not being super snobby or anything, but Anita's Tacky Glue is quite good. And if you want to use that for, you know, some type of delicate, and it's quite strong as well for delicate work and that. So
so it would be
it dries clear as well. But I'm not sure. I quite like the idea of the dried flowers, seeing them being dried, you know, so
like, do you want photographs of the process? Because I've got yeah,
photographs of everybody who's doing the process. I mean, that would be good, you know, sort of like the before and after. Sometimes the actual process of writing something or making something visual is sometimes better than the actual end results. It's a process of what we're going through. I mean, I've had the best times making some stuff that are at the end of it absolutely horrendous, but it's got me to somewhere else. You know, that's why I said, you know, there's no hard and fast rules. Sample, make mistakes, they lead to somewhere else. So that's, you know, there's that nice metaphor as well. So you know, your processes is just as important, you know, because it's where you start. It's like, to quote the X Factor, it's the journey, you know. So, but no, Frances, that sounds really good. I like the way you say, you know, that, you know, people are masking this with, you know, drink and quizzes. I have no idea what you're talking about. You know, that's really
it's really far out there. Like, no one else is doing
that's very, very strange. Okay.
Just me with my bottle.
Okay, Jude, who's next?
Is it Anya Carson? Is that right? Hold on, I get you unmuted.
Is it Anya? I can rename her now if you like.
That might be good, Paul.
I can't get you unmuted for some reason.
It asked me if I wanted to be unmuted.
Oh, right. Here's me clicking on pile time.
Yeah. So I've been kind of writing down ideas and doing some doodling.
Yeah.
And kind of the ideas so far that I've come up with is because I work for the NHS. So we kind of have a bit of a large role at the minute about what's all going on. I'm thinking about doing a postcard on the media, as in who is for and against the lockdown and what messages they're telling people, which people are kind of listening to them and who they're not. And I also want to do something on social media and the rise of TikTok. I kind of spend a lot of time watching stupid videos, and some of them are absolute genius, and they're from people who are just kind of in their kitchens and whatever, and they kind of have this massive reach globally. And I think it's important, but sometimes it's also can be a wee bit irresponsible in the messages that they kind of put through, but I'll go through that anyway. And there's also one on domestic violence that I want to kind of look at, because it seems to have risen, and there's people who are trapped in relationships who are stuck, and while there's a lot of kind of humour going on, there's also a lot of kind of extreme trauma happening with a lot of men and women that I think needs to be recorded and looked at and sort of remembered during this time period, that hopefully there'll be kind of stricter laws brought in as a consequence. There's also punishment attacks where I live. It doesn't seem to have stopped. The threat of coronavirus hasn't stopped people from being shot. And I saw a photograph of paramedics treating this guy who was kneecapped, and they were wearing their PPE. And I remember looking at it going like, this is insane. You know, it just doesn't seem to stop at all. So it's kind of looking at that to try to turn it into some sort of way of, I don't know, just registering it. And so that people kind of look back and go, we really were living in an absolutely mental time, especially where I live anyway. It just seems to be nuts every single day. So
I think that sounds brilliant. I love the way that you've brought it to contemporary. And one of the things as well, you know, growing up here, and I suppose we're all, you know, of an age, it's, you know, what was happening in this country just became, you know, it was like second nature. You know, you barely blinked an eye at it. And we have that black humour, I think, as a result of it. But I really like the way you've brought it right now, the contemporary, and also that'll, if you're writing about now or making an image, that sort of sets it. You know, that's actually like a, you know, a real time comment. And you know, even commenting on social media through something that is so old, you know, like the postcard or the written image, it's a really nice metaphor as well. But Anya, I completely get where you're coming from about how there's that criminal paramilitary element is still there and hasn't, you know, the quote down Jerry Adams, it hasn't gone away, you know.
Definitely. There was this here other thing I had saw where there were former combatants and they were delivering food parcels, and I kind of thought it was funny the way people kind of have swapped balaclavas for surgical masks.
Yeah.
And it's like, fair enough, you know, work away. And I think it kind of needs to be looked at as well, as in like that kind of humour too, because it came such a long way that, you know, our city councils are now paying people to deliver food parcels to your front door instead of a knock on the door telling you to meet them in an alleyway. So it's kind of like,
no, you're absolutely, I mean, that's
positive, you know.
And yeah, that's right across the board. You know, that's sort of all communities, as they would say. You know, here now, well, there's only two communities here, obviously. You know, I use that term loosely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it's worth commenting on. I really like that, and you know, using the balaclava, you know, as you know this. But I worked with some of the paramilitaries. They used to call them the cuddly Leslie and her cuddly paramilitaries, and we all know. I'd mentioned this before. Like there was nothing really that cuddly about them. Some of them did, you know, become friends as such, you know. But I always had to remember you were still doing a job. But I really like where you're coming from, and I think there's a lot of mileage in that, and I like the humour aspect of it as well. And it's definitely one where you could probably be using sort of newspapers of actual photo, you know, and photographs or magazines or whatever of things that are happening now that you could use in some type of collage with some, or you know, or trace them or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's just I haven't drawn in years, and I kind of been doodling, and I've realised how crap I've got that I've just went, I'm not putting this on a postcard. It's just absolutely work, but it's kind of giving advice, you know.
So well, that's it. I mean, just sample, you know, just keep doodling away, and you know, bits of scrap paper. Don't think. I mean, at the end of the day, this is just a postcard. This is just a piece of blank card.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake on it, we can get another one. Or
Yeah.
if you're doodling on a piece of scrap paper and it turns out really well, or you really like it, you can cut that piece of scrap paper out and put it on your postcard.
Yeah.
Or you can recreate it, you know. But I really like the ideas. And have you thought much about how you would put that into like into a type of story, or would you just like have bullet points or?
Yeah, I was thinking about writing to maybe relatives, or just kind of people I know. But there's another one that I want to send one to my hairdresser and apologise for using a box dye in advance, just to kind of, it just seems to be like, I really miss going to hairdressers. I didn't realise how much of a part you had in my life.
And she will know that I've dyed my own hair, and you can see I'm having it scraped back because it's my fringes down to here somewhere, you know. But it's one of those important real life things. I love it. I like the way you're thinking there. Definitely looking forward to seeing some of them.
Thank you.
Okay, you happy enough?
Yeah.
Who's next? There, Joe, is it? Yeah.
Yes. Just wait till I get you muted. That's you now.
That's me, yeah.
Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I didn't know whether I was going to be able to take part this morning because my mother died on Monday, and that's why I wasn't able to go in with the writing thing. But I watched a bit of it yesterday, so I wanted to sort of get back into things. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Joe.
Sorry
about your loss.
Yeah. She was 94, and she was in a care home, and that was another thing because I hadn't really seen her since way before Mother's Day, which was probably about the 20th of March or so. But anyway, but the table I'm sitting at is covered in all sorts of scraps of paper and stuff that I'd been collecting to make my postcard, and I've had a lot of thought about it and a lot of thinking time to put things together and stuff. My thought is really again based on the present situation, the coronavirus situation. The thing that has resonated very much with me is that I got involved with local community help place, where they were involved in delivering prescriptions and doing shopping for people, and it actually started right more or less from the 23rd of March. It was it was live then from that point. And so I'm going to do something about that and about how it coordinates things like food bank and baby basics and stuff like that, all together, to sort of, everything's coordinated together, so that if people ring in and they want help or whatever, then we can point them in the direction that they need. And I have I've done a couple of days, well, nearly a week probably on and off, taking people's calls and listening to their troubles. And at the beginning, first week I did this, which was like at the end of March, there was an awful lot of uncertainty, panic. People were really, really unsure of the future. Relatives were ringing in. They were, from places like England about their mums, and they felt helpless because they couldn't come home, and they wanted us to help them. And really, really, really interesting, and a real big need in a community. Where people maybe aren't isolated, that they're isolated in their own homes, but they're not living in a rural community. They're living in a street with other people. And then when I did it again, you got to hear from the same people. Some people were ringing up, and some of them just wanted to be chat, and obviously lonely, and And it was nice, it built up a rapport with some of the volunteers that had been doing the shopping for them or whatever, and they wanted them particulars to help them and stuff. So that's what my poster's going to be about. My postcard's going to be about. It's going to be about the help and the reason why, because basically it's a church-based church-based community effort, and the volunteers are from local churches, and they've all got together and put themselves on the volunteer list. So basically that's come from that angle. As far as the writing, I loved Jan's workshop. The bit I saw of it, I thought was really good. Just as Jude said, inspired me to think about writing. I loved the character building. I thought that was really fabulous. So I could maybe write something, maybe from the point of view of one of the people who have needed to use the volunteering service. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. As you can imagine, I have other things in my mind this week, so I'm a bit sort of out there. But I wanted to contribute this morning because I really feel that it's important to keep on board, because otherwise you'll miss something, and you'll not be able to do the thing. But yeah, that's where I am at the minute. That's me.
That sounds really great. And there has been, again, those stories of people coming together and getting soup kitchens together, businesses that are closed, restaurants that are helping, with volunteers, and so again, that's that relevance to what's happening, but also that sense of community that is there anyway. No, that's grand. And really give Jan's session, it was great. I mean, I think we all came off it a wee bit walking an hour, like you know, you get sort of really, this is amazing, and then you go, it was very inspirational. But I mean, again, she was giving the ideas of what the writing could be. When if you listen to it, there's a difference between what she would class a story and a poem. It can be just a descriptive piece about your own experiences. It doesn't have to be an actual fiction piece as well. So it's again, there's no hard and fast rules. We're not looking for the next Booker Prize short story or anything. And that goes for all of you. Don't overthink it too much. Is the main thing. But some of the ideas that are coming up, so far are brilliant. Thanks very much, Jo.
Okay.
Jenny, yes, your light is on.
Right. So I can talk, yeah?
Yep. We're allowing you to speak.
Okay. Yeah, I've been working on the postcards, and I've got something here. I got caught up in the pattern of COVID-19. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So I created a stencil for my little COVID virus, and it's been populating several postcards. And along with that, I've been putting words down. And I suppose you could say that the postcards so far are fairly political. And they are about the words that are used during this crisis, whatever you want to call it, and also what else happens through government while this is happening. So a lot of it, I realized, is really quite angry towards government and authority. And also just what it has meant to people who have been isolated. The fact that there have been suicides, that there have been incidents of domestic violence, that people in care homes have been left isolated, that a lot of the safeguards that were in place for people, for older people, for children in care, for lots of people have basically gone, that a lot of the preventative work, breast screening, you name it, has stopped. And yes, there's the virus, but what happens at the end of it? And I suppose one of my postcards, just, I've got a thing and it says COVID normal, ? What happens? And that's sort of where I am in some of those. I mean, I'm over in Fermanagh, I'm in a rural area, so, you know, it's, I can do my growing, I can do my artwork, my writing, I'm writing a book and doing things like that. So I can take myself out of things, but a lot of people can't. And I suppose I'm thinking back to being a social worker and a teacher, what I did before. And there are parts of it that, are coming out on these postcards at the moment. I suppose that they're at the moment they're into the negative. They will probably come round to some of the positive. They'll certainly be more like the sort of the stories or story that I'll probably go for, and on the back of the postcard will probably have that element of magical realism that Jan Carson uses.
Yeah.
So we'll see where it goes.
No, that sounds grand. I mean, it's almost like you're sort of preparing more of an essay than a written piece, which is grand, you know, sort of like, you know, a commentary, and the questioning. I mean, I because that actually places it, you know, in present day, the same as, you know, Anya and Rosie were saying, you know, it's, I quite like that element of it, where whatever you do write to go along with your visual, you know, isn't necessarily fiction. It's, you know, like a commentary. Yes, Jan was talking about, you know, magical realism and, you know, and actual fiction, but it can be, you know, in your own voice as well.
Yeah.
You know, which a postcard often is, you know. But no, I like the idea of where you're coming from. When you said about it being political, I noticed you'd used some specific colours there with the COVID pattern, which are, you know, we all know the colours, like, you know, with political parties are very relevant. You know, it's, you know, exactly who's talking when you see the colour of the rosette or whatever shirt or whatever they're wearing, you know, most of the time anyway.
Yeah, I've got a mixture of them actually. I've got some which just show that it's everybody and there's no particular colour, but there is an element too where there's something quite attractive about the COVID-19 virus as a pattern. It's quite intriguing because it can become flower-like. It rolls around, and I think if you can look at something differently, then you can deal with the concern you may have about it, because it's if you see it everywhere, then it loses its fear, if you like. It's sort of notoriety. If it becomes a sort of a background to things, or in the case of some of the stuff I'm doing, I suppose, where possibly things are being done while that is there. I mean, you've got a government in London that is making decisions, and there's really no involvement and no prevention to things that they might be agreeing. So yeah, it's all to do with that.
I do actually quite like, without getting too political, that, you know, the other devolved, you know, governments, Wales, Scotland and ourselves, have actually went, no, actually that's okay, but for our countries or for our areas, you know, we do need to, it does have to be slightly different. But perhaps that's a conversation for another time.
It probably is. It probably is. No, it's just, you know, so that's what I'm up to.
Yeah. Jenny, that sounds great. Just when I was noticing, and this isn't at all criticism, just remember, we've given you, and this is for everybody, by the way, we've given you white cards. You don't always have to see the white at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? Just think of your backgrounds as well as what's in the foreground as well. And that's just a purely, you know, aesthetic of how it's going to look. You know, sometimes it works, as you see here with this one. Obviously it's white, you know, but some of the other ones, you know, I'm thinking of, you know, like the postcard. This is just your classic postcard of it's not a great example, sorry, but anyway, you just get the gist. If you are putting stuff down, think of your background. It's almost when you're doing collage or when you're doing a painting, you start at the back and work forward. And it's a wee bit like when you're writing as well. You do a lot of sketches or a lot of, sort of, what was it Jan called it, shitty first draft. So just think about that. Right, Melanie, are you next?
Oh, I'm mute you now. There you go.
Hello everybody, I'm like Jim. I was trying to explain what this was about to my husband and he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So I was a bit confused as to what we were supposed to do. And I think from the two talks that Leslie you gave and the creative writing talk as well, that kind of did focus me down onto what was about. Because I was a bit thrown by all the political stuff. And I mean, all I can think of at the minute is really the coronavirus and how it affects everything. So I suppose a practical question I had was, like, whenever you do the postcards, and you said about posting them. So where do you post them, or what? Do we get that information later on then?
Sorry, you can post them to your friends and family, to get them involved. And then when you're finished with, them, if you want to maybe stick them in the envelope, and we can post them down to us at the Linen Hall Library
Right.
for the exhibition. But I would like you all to take photographs of them as well, so as we have a digital record as well as the physical, hard copy. So it was that the posting out to people was an option, to get again that connection. If you wanted to post something to somebody who was maybe a bit isolated, or a friend, here, do you want to try this out? So that was the option we were giving you. There was no like, you must send out 3 postcards, you must get them back by a certain date. We weren't doing that. We're keeping it as flexible as possible, because there was enough rules and regulations to follow at the minute,
Yeah.
So that's why I keep saying there's nothing really wrong or right. We can give you, I'm sounding like Boris, I'm being very vague.
I know. I'm more of a, just tell me what I have to do and I'll follow it.
Okay, the main thing is what we would like. This is easier. We would like some type of visual, and we'd like some type of piece of writing to go with it.
Okay.
And that's the main thing. Now you can do your writing on the back of the postcard. You can have your writing separate. You can, apart from that. So
yes, that's great. That's great. I'm not really arty, so I'm more of a scientist, if you like. I just like
bring it on. Art and sciences always go well together.
so no, I'm really enjoying it. So thank you.
Oh, that's good. Is there anything you're happy enough then with what you're doing now? And I feel so bad. I feel as if I haven't explained anything right.
I think it was just me in my head. I think it was all too much really initially, and I've never been in an art course or anything. And my mother-in-law, she was talking about art as well, so I gave her a postcard to work away herself, because she is a painter and everything. So it'd be interesting. The words are more my thing than the painting and I like photographs, so I'd probably use that medium.
No, that's grand. Well, that sounds good. As long as we've got that cleared up.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much. Okay. Right. Who's next? Who have we got?
Teresa. There you go.
Teresa, how you doing?
Hello.
2 seconds there, Teresa. I'm just going to remove your other device that's connected. That's it. Sorry.
Okay.
You can go on ahead and talk away.
Oh, now I can't hear. Hang on.
No.
Oh, the sound wasn't working well on the computer, so I was using the computer for sound.
I just removed it. That's my bad, Teresa. I wonder if she can hear me going, oh no. That was my fault. So when you've got
I can hear you now.
Oh, brilliant. That's great, Teresa. It's just when you've got the 2 devices, they start a wee feedback loop between each other.
I heard you mention that earlier, and I was like, oh, that hasn't happened to me, and then it did.
Grand, Teresa. That's you now.
Right. First and foremost, I'm delighted to know that I wasn't the only one that was slightly confused, and that I'm not the only one that isn't or doesn't perceive myself to be arty, but I'm definitely not. The other thing is, I think I might be the only one that's south of the border. Everybody seems to be in Belfast, Fermanagh, north of the border areas, but I'd be very familiar with all the venues you're referencing because I'm from Monaghan, so like Belfast and Prony and all them places are just they're closer than Dublin. But as regards the project, I went by the idea of where did I put them? I hadn't been as good. Some people have really thought out their themes, and I very much took Leslie at a flick a book and pick a topic. So I did that. I've done a couple of postcards. I haven't posted any, purely because I'm not sure if I post them to somebody that I'd get them back. And there is a small community group though that we worked on a project to get people involved in. It's a subsidiary of our local government for community people. I don't know what the equivalent would be in the north, but it's the public and that work together. So there's a group of ladies there, and there's a handful, so I might put a plea in there, see who would be willing to partake. I thought it'd be nice, maybe it might be nice to sort of touch base with them again as well, because we haven't been able to do much, obviously, with lockdown. On my part for lockdown, I've been at home because we're not allowed into the building, and I have been busy making face masks and busy keeping up with as much research as I can with the books and the resources I have at home. I work in a museum, so it's kind of like local history queries. For sources for the project, the postcard project, a friend of one of my daughters put in their group chat that they had a load of travel magazines. They seem to be quite upmarket ones, and National Geographic. Now, I mean, one I was reading last night was about Chernobyl the year after it happened. And I'm dying to Google who lived and died and what happened to the people that they're talking to in the story, because they're talking about it in that as if it's been and done and dusted, and obviously hindsight shows us it wasn't. So I've got a huge amount of like a big crate in the garage of National Geographic, and we've got a similar crate of travel mags. Apart from that, I get the Irish Times on a Saturday. So it was more material, but I might ask one of my daughters to do a paint one for me. And one of my daughters is a makeup artist, and when she was at college she used to have to do face charts, and they were unreal. They were like little faces, and they're little works of art. They're amazing. So I'm only thinking all this now. This morning has been so helpful, hearing everybody put in their ideas to involve other people. Also, there's an article about the bog bodies in one of the... I'm reading as much as I'm looking at these National Geographic. They'll keep me sane, maybe. But there's one about the bog bodies, and there's fabulous photos. And actually, before you held it up this morning, you held up the image of the woman caught in a bomb blast. And I was like, oh my God, I was looking at one of the photos and thinking, could I cut that out well enough that I could just stick that on the card? And it's two reasons. It's because they fascinate me, and all the different reasons why they think people were in the bog. Is it sacrifice? Was it fear? Was it punishment? Was it this? Was it that? And Seamus Heaney's writing about them, and we'd been in the home place just a week before everything started kicking off that they were shutting down. It was the first Saturday of March.
Mm-hmm.
And also last year, I read a book called The Bog Child. And that story has really stayed with me. And one of the ladies, Anya, I'm looking along the names that I can see here. I can't see everybody's. Mentioned earlier about the punishments, beatings or treatment, assaults, and working in the NHS. And The Bog Child, for anyone that's not read it, is set in a border town in Northern Ireland, a border village, maybe more than a town, and they find a bog body. But they think it's written set in the time of the recent troubles, though, as a lot of you ladies and gentlemen will point out, then they're not maybe no, they've improved. Yeah. I think is the best way to put it. But it's at the height of it. So obviously this body is perceived to be somebody that had been buried for punishment, and then it gets, it's really well done. So I thought of using one of them, for definitely using a bog body for one of them. I've done a couple that are just like collage, and I had a kind of Brexit border thing because I live on the border, and even in lockdown I'm tipping, because I'm so close to the border, I'm tipping back and over the border to one of the local shops, you know, and it's weird because you're in and out of checkpoints again, because the guards or the PSNI are trying to check why everybody's tipping back and over, you know, and basically it's, oh, right, carry on, you know. But it's weird because checkpoints for a border town were kind of a way of life that you added on to everything. But I don't know, it was just, I couldn't find anything that helped, so I ended up with a I don't know, it's a lighthouse. Is that clear enough?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was trying to give an effect of two sides of something. But what I'd been thinking about doing that was that it had started me off thinking about Brexit and the borders and being asked again where I'm going and why. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's not the only issue, obviously, with the lockdown and COVID-19. Another big pressure is people, since the 18th of May in the south, and my daughters just have me tortured. I have a 16-year-old, an 18-year-old, and 28. And all they're doing is showing, or the younger two, all they're seeing is stories of people meeting up and having the crack, because it's like it's over, it's party on. Mm-hmm. But it isn't. No. And I feel I'm never like that, but I'm actually I've turned into one of those mothers. I can't believe those parents, but I wouldn't normally be that person, but I can't. So that's been a big effect for us, but I'm loving this. Personally, when I signed up, I thought, God, you know, it's going to be, I'd love the bit on the linen hall, because I mean, I love going in there, just love it. And then it was like, is that talk about the murals? Would be good. Yeah, it could be interesting in that. Not sure about the creative writing, and it's hard to split, but I'm just loving every strand of it, loving it. And now I know, like, I mean, the talk with Jan on Tuesday is like, yeah, I can write like that. It's not impossible. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I can. But should you, when you say a written piece, should you write it for each of them, or should you just have an idea for one of them and maybe put a little label on the back of others?
Well, a label would work for some of them if you wanted to do that. But if you would like at least one piece of writing, you know. And I mean, I know Jan was talking about like a very much of story, but I mean, what Jenny was saying, you know, about question and stuff, it could be like a bit of an essay, it could be a comment, you know, from your own personal perspective of what's happening. You know, so that part of it is quite loose. I know I'm being very vague again, but I don't want to be putting hard and fast rules on. If you do more than one image, just a small descriptive piece is grand for that as well. You know, like you would maybe see, you know, this was created, or I was inspired by, or this is what I was trying to convey. Just, you know, don't be sweating that too much if you do more than one visual. But one sort of piece of writing would be good if, you know, that just sort of had spent a bit of time on, or, you know, that was your main piece. I think that would be fair.
And I like the theme with the Titanic as well. I couldn't believe when the Titanic one appeared in the pack, because I got my pack as well. Thank you. Because the eldest girl had worked in Titanic Belfast for 3 years, and I always was kind of caught up in that story. And the week it opened, we'd been up there, like she didn't work there then. The week it opened, we'd managed to secure tickets and be up round it. But then she worked there for about 3 years and had part-time jobs in the Grand Opera House and Crumlin Road Jail. And it was great because I'd be up and down to Belfast so often and getting into shows and going for a wander around the Titanic. So I was trying to think, but it doesn't all have to keep tying into the modern day.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. The other thing you were talking about there, Teresa, was that you have National Geographics, and there's, I mean, I'm not a great reader of the Times, but the Times and Sundays magazines are excellent for images.
Oh yeah, the Sunday one. But you see, if I go in on it, it's kind of trying to just, even to, I live out of town, so to justify going into town twice a week is kind of nearly our limit. And then if I go in again on a Sunday, I don't get those nice magazines. You don't get them on a Saturday.
They're the type of magazines, though, that you always keep. You know, as you say, you have boxes of them. I know I'm the same. But that sounds grand. But your ideas and where you're coming from. If you were wanting to use the bulk body just on a practical level, you know, of cutting it out, cut it out very roughly first, in with a pair of scissors, leaving a lot of border. And if you can get your hands on a craft knife, that's sometimes.
Oh, there could be a Stanley knife in the garage, I'll say.
Make sure it's sharp. Test it on a different type of paper first. Something that you're not. Don't go straight in with what you're. And if it doesn't work, just go back to the scissors. And but you know, there's that nice element of it having been cut. You know, that you can see where it came from as well. But I mean, I
don't have access to a printer, so it's going to have to be. One of the ladies mentioned something about having to write, and you were saying even to cut that out, what you write, and stick it on.
Just the words and stuff, you know. I mean, that's one of the things that I was saying about, you know, when you flick through a magazine, if you're looking for a word, or you know, or something you're thinking about, you're bound to find something in that magazine that will relate to what you're thinking about, you know, just in a wee test. But Teresa, that sounds great. You're definitely on the right track, and we'll look forward to seeing what you've got. Okay.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Yes.
Okay, well, we've got Maureen now.
Yeah, she's on today, but halfway through. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah.
Only got on to Zoom today halfway through. I've been having great difficulty getting on. I'm not sure if I'm even linked into Slack yet. It says I am, and yet it doesn't seem to let me on. But I did Women in the Archives before in one of these series of Making the Future, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And when I booked into this one, I thought, I'm no artist, I can't do art, but it sounds really interesting and I'd love to get involved. My granddaughter's married to Brian John Spencer, who is an artist, and I was going to send him one of the postcards. My great-grandson Henry's 7, and he's turning out to be like his dad, so I was going to send him one of the postcards as well. And one of my daughters is very creative craft-wise, and she would be very interested in Titanic and always did. So, and I have another granddaughter who was at art school, who's shut in at the minute too. And so I sent one of the postcards to her. So I'm hoping other people have come up with the great arty ideas. I'll do my best, but my great struggle at the minute is the internet and the Zoom and Slack, and it's not my era at all. I'm only learning and I find it very difficult. But I love the idea, and I'm really going to have a go at it. Really, I'm sorry. I thank you for sending me the video of Jan. I watched that, but I'm sorry I only got onto this halfway through this morning. But anyway,
Maureen, it's grand.
You were a great inspiration. I really enjoyed that first one. I don't know how I managed to get onto that one, because I wasn't even booked in yet. I'd already said I wasn't gonna continue because I wasn't any good at getting on these sites, which has proved to be. But that first one that I shouldn't have got onto, I got onto, and all the others I managed to miss. But thank you so much. I'm going to really give it a go, and I hope I can come up with something anyway.
No, that's great, Maureen. Listen, and stick with it. You know, even if we send you links, just do your email or something. So, was that maybe because Maureen was in a different Women in the Archives that she couldn't get onto the Slack, Jude?
No, I've changed it overnight. First of all, Maureen, I'm only realising now, Maureen, that this is Maureen that I was emailing that was having difficulty getting on. Great to see you.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
You're very encouraging. You were very gracious.
Well, don't worry about that. You're fair play to you for getting on. These things are by no means easy. And another thing is, a lot of the time, it's not the person trying to get on's fault. Sometimes the internet causes issues, the computer causes issues. But that's great. You're on now. That's brilliant. I've had a wee look and I've added you across the 2 channels. So you should be able to get on again. But if you are having difficulty with that, we can email you everything that we've been sharing up there anyway, so you can watch it on your own time.
I would certainly get the emails okay, but
yes,
pot luck. I managed to get onto the one I shouldn't have got onto, and everyone else I've missed.
Brilliant.
So thank you. You've been very gracious.
No problem, Maureen. Thanks for having patience for me trying to explain it to you, because I can be bad sometimes.
No, you were very good. I was determined to try and have a wee go after Leslie said, don't give in, don't give up, just keep going.
That's it. Well, you did
I've
the
been
right
very
thing.
sick recently and had major surgery and have been locked in from January. Not just for the last lot of weeks, I've been locked in from January.
Brilliant. Well, that's good to get this wee opportunity to chat to people and stuff. Brilliant.
Maureen, I'm loving that you've sent some to your family and stuff, and that you've got a nice artistic family. So I like your thinking there, girl. I really do. So spread the love.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Maureen. Right. And who we got? By the way, Jenny, I'm loving that your dog is going mad in the background there.
Okay. Say that again, Jenny.
There's a dog and the cat.
Yes.
But when the dog knows I'm talking to anybody on the computer, she has to get involved. That's why I keep turning around to see what she's at in case she's doing something horribly embarrassing.
Oh, it was funny. You know, they were just running around the background there. Sorry, I digress. Right, who have we got next? Was this on the
Pollyanna.
Here?
I'll get you unmuted now, Pollyanna.
Okay.
There you go. That's you now.
Yes. Well, I've already done one postcard of a potato field by Van Gogh, because I'm a big Van Gogh fan. I also have to admit to being a friend of Jan Carson as well.
That's okay. We won't hold that against you.
And she got me onto writing short stories. I used to just write poetry. But then I attended one of her workshops and read out a story I had written very seriously, and everybody started to laugh. And so after that, I got quite addicted to making people laugh with short stories. So I've got, like I said at the start, of GCSE art to photography. I am trying to think about what to do. I've sent away for some postcard size canvases.
Okay.
And I'm going to do another bit of painting. I was thinking maybe of illustrating one of my poems that did well in a competition after the ceasefire. it was called What's New. That was what the competition was called. And I was joint winner. I might illustrate that.
That sounds really interesting. And it's quite ironic that it was called What's New and now everybody's talking about the new normal. You know, so there's maybe some nice parallels, but that sounds good. I like the idea you've went and got a canvas as well.
Yes.
You know, so fair play.
Yeah. You can get them in all sizes. I was hoping I could get one. I've got one 5x7.
Yeah.
They might have just after had arrived. There was a parcel delivered there now. So Jan, I just want to say, Jan's a wonderful person, you know. She's like, she really is a saint. She works with, I met her, she used to work for the Ulster Hall, and my mummy has dementia. I was listening to all the other ladies that their mummies have dementia. And I used to take her out to a wee singing workshop in the Ulster Hall. And at the time, Jan was working for the Ulster Hall for the council. I know she's gone freelance now.
She has, yes.
And that's how I first met her and heard her first read out from one of her novels, not her present novel. Everybody Buy the Firestarters by Jan Carson. So she won a big prize of her latest novel, a big European Union prize, and she's been, before the lockdown, she had spent about a year on the road. So she's great. She is.
She is, and you know, I knew her just, you know, knew her briefly to say hello to, and had worked, you know, sort of our paths crossed with different projects, but I knew from people talking, you know, about what she'd done and her social media presence, it should be really good, you know, for this type of project, because you have to remember, folks, I mean, this is sort of a wee bit new to us as well. Normally I would be doing a workshop, I would be in the room with you, I would be able to go around and talk to you all. So this sort of doing it digitally is, it's a bit new for us, as Jude will you know, confirm. So it's good that I'm getting some feedback for you about maybe I need to explain things a wee bit better. And you know, how we go ahead, you know, so for the, you know, when we run this again. So, but you know, what you were saying there about Jan, I'm really glad she's a good fit for this type of project, and I've already said to her before we're on this again, I'll definitely be using her. So but overall, listen folks, you have, for a lot of people who didn't really know what they were doing, you have done a really good job. Does that make sense? That's not even a backhanded compliment. I'm really pleased that you're getting something out of it. I thought it was really important that we all got saying our own wee piece today as well, because normally in a workshop, as you know, women and men never usually shut up. And you know, there's always a bit of crack, and you know, so I'm glad we're able to have that wee bit. And do use the Slack if you get on it, you know, have conversations between yourselves, and you know, bounce ideas off. If there's anything you need me or Jude or Paul to help you with, you know, just that's what it's there for. So we're all happy enough then, yeah? Okay, folks. Well, listen, I will let you go, and we'll see you next Tuesday, and that'll be Bill's talk. Bill's obviously going to be talking more about the murals, and so we're going back a wee bit for more like a talk rather than an interactive session, so that'll be good. Listen, have a good weekend. I hope you're all out clapping today for the NHS workers. Way to go, Anya and Rosie. And all the best. I'll see you again soon, and I'll speak to you on Slack.